Welcome to the next part of your SpooliT demonstration journey. Today we will do a deep dive into report splitting. As mentioned in the prior demos, it is important to understand that at its core, SpooliT is a rules-based system. Whether that is a selection rule, an automation rule, an Excel template, or a splitting template, they are all rules. Let's take a closer look together. When it comes to report splitting, SpooliT achieves this using a concept called splitting templates. So what exactly is a SpooliT splitting template? Well, it's simply a set of rules or instructions that sit inside a splitting template. When you look inside a typical IBM iSeries report, you see a bunch of data designed originally to spool that data to a physical printer, in a format that the printer understands. Traditionally, these monster-sized reports were printed, then manually separated into sections, and then manually distributed. So, how can SpooliT achieve the splitting or bursting of huge reports electronically, I hear you ask? Well, it's done by defining a splitting template. Inside a splitting template, you tell SpooliT where the important data resides and how, and when to split that report. For example, whenever the sales territory changes, or whenever the salesperson code changes, or whenever the country or state code changes, or whenever invoice number changes, whenever the warehouse code changes, etc. Once SpooliT understands how to split a report, then that's where the magic starts. Let's take a look at how SpooliT detects data changes and splits the report into smaller sections, or chunks. You can set up selection rules that automatically detect when the huge report is created. When to split the report. If we need to convert each report section into Excel, using a SpooliT Excel template, and then email each split section in Excel format to each salesperson, or each territory manager, or to each warehouse manager. Splitting templates are powerful tools that ensure you save printing costs and meet your organizational sustainability goals. Splitting template rules can 1. Email each report section, or 2. Export each report section to folders in your local file server, or 3. Export each report section to FTP folders in the cloud, or 4. Assuming you still need a hard copy of some reports, you could split and send each report section to different physical printers in different state offices or warehouses, etc. You have the ability to perform file lookups to database tables and dynamically determine who to email to, or which folders to export to, and which physical printers to print to, or which FTP servers to upload to, etc. So, let's roll up our sleeves and take a look together. You will be surprised how easy it is using SpooliT. Let's get started. We have launched the SpooliT application on a Windows PC or Windows Server. You can see we have created a categorization folder where we keep our splitting template selection rules. Using the Tree View, or File Explorer, on the left side, we locate the IBM iSeries output queue that contains our reports to be split. Select the first report we want to split. To make sure you have the right report, you can double-click on it to see the contents in the preview window. Once the report is selected, then press the Splitting Toolbar button. The Splitting Templates screen is displayed. Here, you can see all our existing splitting templates that we have defined. If you want to edit or work with an existing template, then press the Work with Template button in the toolbar. If you want to create a new splitting template, then press the New Template button in the toolbar. If you're creating a new splitting template, then this dialog appears. You have 3 options. 1. Email. 2. Export. 3. Print. Make your selection, then press the Continue button. The main splitting page is divided into 4 distinct areas. 1. Split options. 2. Detail splitting rules. 3. Split template rule options. 4. A report canvas. Within the split options frame, you click on each node, starting from the top, working your way down to the bottom node. Let's take a look at key constant. Click on the key constant node if your report includes a text constant that can be used to help split the report. It's usually used as an anchor point. In this example, the constant is ACME sales rep. Using the report canvas, drag the mouse over the constant text, then press the Capture from Canvas button. The coordinates of the constant are displayed. These can be modified if required by typing over the coordinates. If the coordinates are changed, the report canvas is automatically updated. Note: always means the report is to be split each time the constant is detected. Note: if is the default value. It's used in conjunction with a key value. The location frame will default to fixed row and column. However, the location can be altered if, and, as required. Click on the key value if your report includes a data value that can be used to split the report. For example, a sales rep code. Using the report canvas, drag the mouse over the key value, then press the Capture from Canvas button. In this example, the report includes a constant ACME sales rep and a key value R00001 representing the salesman code. This will instruct SpooliT that we want the report to be split whenever the key constant is found, and when the salesman code value changes. The page node only applies if you need to split a report every X number of pages, regardless of key constant and regardless of the key value changes. Click on the recipient constant node if your report includes a text constant that can be used to identify the recipient, an anchor point. It is not mandatory to define a recipient constant. Using the report canvas, drag the mouse over the constant, then press the Capture from Canvas button. The location frame will default to fixed column in any row. However, the location can be altered if required. Click on the Split Recipient node. Most of the time, all you need to do is click on the checkbox. Check this box if the recipient is the same as the key value. There are two ways to obtain the email address that SpooliT will use to distribute the split report sections. Either directly mined from within the report content, or by using a lookup database table to obtain the email address. In this example, we are using the salesman code, that is R00001, as the key, to look up the actual email address for R00001. Click on the Lookup Table node. If the report does not contain the email address, or does not contain an export folder location in the body of the report, then we can use the Lookup Table option. It is not mandatory to use a lookup table. In this example, the iSeries contains a table called Salesman in Library QGPL. Type in the library and file name, then press the Get Fields button. The file name is validated, field definitions are returned to SpooliT to enable us to identify the key and the email address from the database table. In this example, we said that we will split the report whenever the key constant is found, and when the salesman code changes value. The email address will be obtained via a lookup to the iSeries table called QGPL/salesman. SpooliT will use the salesman code, that is R00001, as the recipient value linked to field named A1 cust. Whenever the recipient value changes, SpooliT will perform the table lookup and extract the email address located in field named A1 EMAL. Select the key to the file from the list of fields, then press the Select button to capture the key field A1 cust. Select the email address from the list of fields, then press the Select button to capture the recipient field named A1 EMAL. The Preview Contents button will display the contents of the table, that is the actual data. Only a small portion of the file is returned, not the entire table. Press the Continue button to accept the selections and return to the splitting template definition. Note, this feature is applicable for email addresses, or export paths, or folder locations. The export locations can either be mined from the report content itself or obtained from an iSeries table that contains the export path or location. Export paths can either be UNC names, or fully qualified drive/path export locations. As a footnote, it may help to understand that a lookup database table can support the following relationships. 1. A one-to-one relationship, that is, one salesman's code has only one email address. 2. A one-to-many relationship, that is, one salesman's code might exist on many table records. That might be helpful if a particular salesman's code needs to go to multiple salespersons with different email addresses. 3. It is also important to note that if a salesman's code does not have a database record, then that report is still split, however it is not distributed. In this case, a new salesperson commenced with the organization, however the master data team forgot to add them to this salesman's database. Note: using the naming section for file naming is totally optional. If you do not specify naming rules for the splitting template, then SpooliT will assign a name based on the global naming defaults. Use this feature if you want to control what SpooliT calls the individual report splits. This feature will enable you to mine data from within the report itself to use as part of a file name. Click on the naming constant if your report includes a constant that can be used to identify or anchor the naming values. It is not mandatory to define a naming constant. This feature will enable you to mine data from within the report itself, then, to use that data as part of a file name. Click on the naming option if your report includes data inside the report that you wish to use to name the individual split reports. In this example, we have selected both the salesman's code and the salesman's name as part of the file name as well as the email address. In addition, we have pressed the Additional File Naming button to further refine the file naming rules. This enables us to specify the report attributes that we also want to include as part of the file naming. You may specify up to 4 additional parts from within the report to be used as part of the output file naming. Select the naming option. Turn on the checkbox to enable part of a split name. Drag the mouse over data in the report if you want to include it as part of the name. Press the Capture from Canvas button to complete the selection. To select an additional naming part, uncheck the previous selection for part 1, and repeat steps 2 to 4 above. If you make a mistake, press the Clear button next to the naming part. The split naming parts will always be used as the prefix for file naming. Capture salesman's code for file naming. Capture salesperson's name for file naming. Capture email address for file naming. Other info node. This option enables you to define additional information. If splits should occur before or after a key value change, the default is before. If pages should be excluded from the report when splitting occurs. Valid options are 1. At the start of the spool file. 2. At the start of the split file. 3. At the end of the spool file. 4. At the end of the split file. Notify option. If a report is split, and not all sections of the report have been successfully emailed to the recipients or not exported to the nominated folders, you can send a notification email to an administrator. The email can either include 1. A list of all unassigned splits. 2. Optionally to send each unassigned split to the administrator as individual emails. It's critical that you test your work. We always say that an incorrect template or rule is worse than no template at all. Test your splitting template by pressing the Split Preview toolbar button. The spool file report is actually processed, and a dialog will be displayed showing you the results of the splitting process. If you are satisfied with the results, then save your template. If the results are incorrect, then analyze what is incorrect, and make the necessary changes to your SpooliT splitting template to fix the issues. Once you are satisfied, then save your work. Never use a splitting template as part of a selection rule or an automation rule without first testing it. Once you are complete defining the splitting template, then remember to save your work. Enter a meaningful name, this will help you identify it more easily later on. In the next example, we will define a splitting template to export split report chunks to an FTP server. Using the SpooliT File Explorer, navigate to your IBM iSeries output queue. Locate your report and double-click on the report to ensure you have the correct report. It will be visible in the preview window at the bottom of the screen. Then press the splitting button in the toolbar banner above. The splitting dialog is displayed showing you all your existing splitting templates. To create a new splitting template, click on the New Template button in the toolbar. The following dialog will be displayed. Since this example is to split a report and export the report chunks, we will select the second option, Export to a Physical Location. Click on the Key Constant node if your report includes a text constant that can be used to help split the report. It's usually used as an anchor point. In this example, the constant is ACME sales rep. Using the report canvas, drag the mouse over the constant text, then press the Capture from Canvas button. Click on the Key Value node if your report includes a data value that can be used to split the report. For example, a sales rep code. Using the report canvas, drag the mouse over the key value, then press the Capture from Canvas button. In this example, the report includes a constant ACME sales rep and a key value R00001 representing the salesman code. This will instruct SpooliT that we want the report to be split whenever the key constant is found, and when the salesman code value changes. For this example, we will ignore the page node. Click on the Recipient Constant node if your report includes a text constant that can be used to identify the recipient, that is an anchor point. It is not mandatory to define a recipient constant. Click on the Split Recipient node. Usually, just click on the checkbox, check this box if the recipient is the same as the key value. In this example, we are using the salesman code, that is R00001 as the key, to look up the actual email address for this salesman's code. Click on the Lookup Table node. In this example, the iSeries contains a table called Salesman in Library QGPL. Type in the library and file name, then press the Get Fields button. The file name is validated, field definitions are returned to SpooliT to enable us to identify the key and the export path location from the database table. In this example, we said that we will split the report whenever the key constant is found, and when the salesman code changes value. The export location path will be obtained via a lookup to the iSeries table called QGPL/salesman. SpooliT will use the salesman code, that is R00001, as the recipient value linked to field named A1 cust. Whenever the recipient value changes, SpooliT will perform the table lookup and extract the email address located in field named A1EXPT. Select the key to the file from the list of fields, then press the Select button to capture the key field A1 cust. Select the export location from the list of fields, then press the Select button to capture the recipient field named A1EXPT. Press the Continue button to accept the selections, and return to the splitting template definition. The export locations can either be mined from the report content itself or obtained from an iSeries table that contains the export path or location. Export paths can either be UNC names, or fully qualified drive and path export locations. In this example, we are also going to click on the Export to FTP Server option. This FTP server dialog will be displayed. Here, you can define a new FTP server connection or work with existing FTP server locations. Review your options and make changes as required. Once you have completed reviewing all left side nodes, remember to save your work and provide a meaningful name. Also, remember to test your splitting template rule. To do this, press the Split Preview button from the toolbar banner. It's critical that you test your work. Test your splitting template by pressing the Split Preview toolbar button. The spool file report is actually processed, and a dialog will be displayed showing you the results of the splitting process. The splitting preview will execute, including performing lookup table, and you will be presented with a dialog of each report chunk. If the results are incorrect, then analyze what is incorrect, and make the necessary changes to your SpooliT splitting template to fix the issues. Once you are satisfied with your results, then save your work. In this next section we will define a selection rule for this splitting template. Using the SpooliT File Explorer, navigate to where your splitting rules are located. Here you can see a few splitting selection rules already exist. Let's review one of these selection rules. Here is the name of this particular selection rule. Here we can see the various report attributes that form the basis of the selection process. Library name, output queue name, system name, spool file name, and so on. Finally, click on the Splitting Rules tab. This is where you join a splitting template to its selection rule. Make sure you select the correct splitting template from the list provided. Then select your nominated file format type. In this example we will choose Excel as out file format. We will also press the template button and select a SpooliT Excel template that we defined earlier in our demonstration. Locate your SpooliT Excel template. Click on the Excel template. Press Apply to save your selection rule. So, let's summarize. 1. We have created a splitting template to email report chunks to the right people. 2. We have created a second splitting template to split the report and export report chunks to a folder location or to an FTP file server location. 3. We created selection rules for these splitting reports. 4. We joined a splitting template to a selection rule. 5. We decided to output the individual report chunks into an Excel format. We chose an existing Excel template we created earlier to define how that data should look inside Excel. Next, let's tie this up neatly by automating our splitting selection rule to enable straight-through processing. Once you save any selection rule, you will be asked if you want to automate the rule. Select Yes to continue. The automation wizard will guide you through the various step 1 through to step 4. Make your automation selections and press the Apply button to save your changes. In this section, let's review the results of a split. We can view the splitting details, or resend split report chunks again, if required. When a splitting rule runs, it places those reports into the virtual folder for that splitting selection rule. Split reports appear with an icon specific only to splitting. If you right-mouse click on a split report, then the pop-up menu presents you with a submenu options called View Split Detail. The View Split Details will present a dialog showing you a list of all the split sections. Here, you can see if the split report chunks, sections, were emailed, exported, printed, etc. You have the option to view the split chunk and/or resend them. Here, we can see that this report chunk was originally sent via a SpooliT Excel template. Here, we can also see the report data in a text format. The user notified us that they accidentally deleted their daily email splitting report. Here, an administrator is going to select a split report chunk and resend it via email. Choose the correct report section for this salesman. Then press the Resend button. An email dialog appears. Review the information and if necessary make any changes. Then press the Send button to email the split report chunk to the salesman. Next, let's view another report that was processed via a splitting rule. Right mouse click. Select View Split Details. The View Split Details dialog is displayed. Click on a report split section. Press on the Open button. The report is opened in the original format that was used to email or export that report section. In this example, it was sent using a SpooliT Excel template, as well as in a plain text format. Once you are finished reviewing the split report details, exit this dialog. You are returned to the main SpooliT user interface. Next, we will look at where our splitting automation rules can be found. Click on the Automation tab. All your automation rules are visible here. Locate your automation rule, then double-click on the splitting automation rule to look at the automation rule details. The automation rule for its corresponding splitting selection rule is displayed here. Press Cancel to exit this screen. To exit the Automation tab, simply press the left mouse tab. You are now returned to the main SpooliT File Explorer. That concludes the end of this deep dive into splitting templates, selection rules and automation rules for splitting reports. In the next demonstration chapter we will perform a deep dive into SpooliT automation rules. We hope you enjoy the rest of your SpooliT demonstration journey.